The artist J.M. Turner, known in his day as William Turner, is most famous for his extraordinary landscape paintings. What's not quite as well known is that he also did erotic art. Lots of it. Now, if you're familiar with this man and his works, you probably know him from paintings like this. Lots of seascapes, lots of drama. Early on in his career, it starts like this, where it's definitely not photorealistic, but it changes into much more expressive and abstract images like this one here. He was a man way ahead of his time and was doing abstract expressionism before it was even a thing. But he was also painting rude pictures, which really shocked everybody when it came out after he died. Now, I need to be so careful what I show you here because some of them are anatomical, to say the least. But I think I can get away with this one. It's just kind of tangled legs in a bed. Right, okay, so this is one of them. Now, I nearly made Turner one of my shithead men from history, but the reason that I didn't is because finding biographical information on him and the women in his life is so difficult. Even his biographers really struggle with this, and it's because Turner himself was a bit of an odd duck. He was born in Covent Garden and he was very much a working class lad who made good just because of the sheer brilliance of his art. But as he got older and older, his eccentricities became more and more entrenched. He didn't like people very much. He didn't have many friends. He lived most of his life alone with his dad, and then when his dad died, it really sent him off the rails. But he just didn't socialise with people. There's a couple of records of him giving lectures, and he was dreadful at it. He couldn't communicate very well. There's one story that when the census taker came round, he rowed himself out into the middle of the Thames just so he wouldn't be on record anywhere. And all of that has left a real problem for biographers. Like, even the best biographers really struggle to get who is this man. They can trace what he was doing and his artwork and stuff like that, but actual who he was is very difficult. The women in his life we know next to nothing about at all. He had two mistresses that we know of. The first one, Sarah Danby, was actually the widow of his friend. She had 7 kids by the time they took up together, and he gave her 2 more illegitimate children. And he never recognised them as his. In fact, they lived apart. He didn't acknowledge the relationship. This is like the definition of like, oh, but like, why do we have to put a label on it? That kind of thing. He just wouldn't recognise it. Didn't leave him anything in his will, like no public, just that's one of the shithead behaviours. The other was his landlady at Margate, whose name was Sophia Booth, who he chucked Sarah, or at least he abandoned Sarah Danby and the kids, and then took up with Mrs. Booth a little bit later on. We know a little bit more about her, but really not much at all. It was still all very secretive. But she looked after him until his death. Let's get back to the erotic art. So it's thought that these are drawn from life. We know he visited brothels, especially in his youth. There's a lot of group scenes. I think I can get away with this one if I sort of float in the middle. This is thought to be Mrs. Booth, possibly. I think I can just about get away with this one. This is a woman kind of wrapped in sheets. Maybe, I guess we'll find out if I can get away with it. Anyway, there's about 150 of these sketches, and nobody knew about it until he died. When he did die, Turner left all of his artwork, everything, to the state. Not to his children, by the way, to the state. And the executor of his estate was this guy. Notorious prude and Victorian art critic John Ruskin, who found the sketches, and you can imagine the scenes. He idolised Turner. He thought that he was like the most amazing, incredible artist, and then he finds sketch after sketch after sketch. He was really upset. He wrote about it at the time to a friend and said that it was just painting after painting of Turner's of the most shameful sort. Woman's pudenda, inexcusable and, to me, inexplicable. He hands them all over to the curator of the National Gallery, a guy called Ralph Warnham, and he says, you've got to burn them. You've got to burn them for the sake of Turner's reputation. He said they could only have been drawn under a certain condition of insanity. He makes a note in his diary and says that they were all burnt in front of me in my presence in December 1858. And this was the accepted version until 2003, when a guy called Ian Worrell, who is a Turner expert at the Tate, started to investigate the claims a little bit further. Did he really burn them? Because he couldn't find any evidence that there had been this big bonfire of sketches. And he started looking through all the archives and through the vast collection of Turner documents, and he found them. He found them scattered. They had been hidden very carefully. So it looks like Ruskin had just lied about that. Quite why Ruskin would lie and say that he'd burnt them when he quite clearly hadn't, that's a matter of dispute, but it's probably all about preserving the reputation of his hero. He's told people that he's burnt them. He's told them that it was some kind of product of insanity, a mental lapse. That'll do. But maybe he loved him too much to actually destroy any of his work. We'll never know. But thank God he didn't burn them, and you can now actually go and see this collection of Turner's erotic work at the Tate Modern today. Ruskin might have thought that they were a product of a failure of mind, but I actually think that they're quite beautiful.